sad evening because we have gathered here to remember one of the most important artists, a very good friend, a very helpful and civilized person, and a jovial person. I don't remember when I met him, but I must have met him in the company of J. Swaminathan. At one time, I think they were all in the Garhi studios, Swaminathan, Krishan Khanna, Himmat Shah, Manjeet Pava. And Nand Katyal, and we are particularly sad because of two things. One, he was with us only a few days ago, and he talked so powerfully and jovially about J. Swaminathan, telling us things which we had not known and which only Nand could have known because he was there. For instance, I did not know that Nand had met Octavio Paz with Swaminathan, which he mentioned. He was very keen for the past about a year to publish a book on Roop and Mary Krishna. He first proposed that the foundation should publish it. And we told him that we will not publish books and we will not be able to handle it because we have a GST problem then. We come into that category because we will be publishing a book. So we said we'll find a publisher. Finally, about a few months ago, he told me that he had decided to publish on his own, and he's got everything in order and got an introduction by, I think, Krishan Khanna, and had a piece by Ranbir Kaleka. He has put together everything. So then I told him, okay, now we will fund it. So we funded it. But then we were planning a discussion on the book, and somehow we are not able to get a suitable venue for it. When we got the venue, that is next month, 24th, we informed him in that same meeting in which he was talking about Swaminathan, that Nandji, now we have got it and we shall have it. So it was particularly sad for us and unfortunate for us that this book, which he very lovingly put together. We are living in times of amnesia, almost, if I borrow a phrase from an abominable politician, manufactured amnesia. There are people like Nand who would like to remember those who have contributed to the art world earlier and whom we seem to have completely erased from our social memory and even artistic memory. Nand was also associated for a long time with Span magazine. And I think he also excelled in designing catalogs. And I remember when, for a while, I had two associations with Lalit Kala. The one was when a Trinali was being organized by Krishan and Swami. At that time, I think the catalogue was being put together by Nand because he was supposed to be a wonderful designer. And second time, when of course I was the chairman, which was the most unfortunate time for me. But anyway, at that time. And secondly, I think when we organized in Bharat Bhavan the first International Print Biennale, Swami wanted Nand to put together the catalogue, and I think he did. So he was a man of many parts, and it's difficult to see how he suddenly passed away. I'm told in sleep. He perhaps had a heart attack, and we will still do something about this book later, but I thought we'll let you see it today. Some of you might not have seen it. There is at any given time, when what makes the so-called history of a time has not only masters, but also others who may not be acknowledged as masters, but who were good, solid contributors to the art practice. And surely Nand Katyal was one of them. And we are here to remember him, also gratefully to remember him, because what he did for others and for art is something we must be grateful for. Ranbir Kaleka was to be here, but unfortunately he had some family engagements. So he wrote to me saying, can I write a note and send it to you? So I'm going to read this small note. A soft tinkle of the spoon stirring sugar into a cup of tea. I turn around to look at him. I was seated comfortably in the front part of Nand Katyal's Garhi studio as he prepared tea for two. In the mellow light of the studio, Nand Katyal's movements were slow and balletic. I was preparing a video painting installation with Nand Katyal's installation, and Nand Katyal's kind face and benevolent presence was perfect for a work which spoke of men's inhumanity to men, to say that pain doesn't discriminate. Nand Katyal's family allowed me to shoot the video in their charming house, and it graciously accommodated the whole team. He laid out a sculptural piece which Carl Andre had presented to him. The entire Katyal family is in the film. They also endured a soaking in an artificial rain on the house. I will always be grateful to them for bearing with our intrusion into their private spaces. This was nearly 18 years ago, and all those involved have aged. Baby Pavani Katyal would be a young woman now. I hope she's here. Apart from the installation, we discussed painting, the canvas responding to the physical gesture of artists applying paint. We talked about how far a color can be pushed in its purity before its kishness grates on the senses. I liked speaking in Punjabi with Nand Katyal and hear his proverbs and stories in Lahori Punjabi. His was a mellifluous voice, comforting and unhurried. To bring out a book on his father's artist friends, Roop and Mary Krishnan, was his dream, a tribute and a passage into the era of his childhood in Lahore, known as the city of gardens and literature. I was happy to make a small contribution to its text. Nand Katyal was so very much looking forward to this book, released by Ashok Vajpayee. We feel anguished he is not with us. We find solace in knowing the book and his art are here to stay, as are the memories of his stories and his unique warmth. My heartfelt condolences to Vijay Katyal, Aditya Katyal, Sapna Katyal, and Pavani Katyal. I wish today I could have been here with you. Well, may I now request Ram Rahman to say a few words.
looking at all the people who are sitting here, I see the whole of Span magazine from all those years ago, which is where I really got to know Nand through Chidananda Dasgupta. I can't say anything very profound, but I think I'm 10 years younger than some of you and maybe 20 years younger than some of you. So I can talk as a younger person who met someone like Nand, was aware of his history and his work, and can pay some tribute from that position. Nand came to Delhi along with a whole slew of artists, writers, etc., who came from Lahore, of what became Pakistan, at partition, and was a student at the Delhi Polytechnic, many of whom his classmates who are sitting here and can really talk more profoundly about him and his work than me. But I thought it was important to talk about that period of Delhi coming out of partition, when British Delhi had been built and much of New Delhi had not been built yet. The Delhi Polytechnic was in Kashmiri Gate and was a very, very important generator as an institution of so many people who came out of that. Kiran Gujral, Shiban Ganju sitting here, Raj Rewal. It was both architects and artists. Arpita Singh, Paramjeet, who met over there and got married. Arpita has not been very well lately. She's also in the hospital. Bishambar Khanna. Now, at that time, artists couldn't really make a living by selling their work. So Nand got a job at Span for the USIs, actually working in a building that my father had designed. Bishambar Khanna ended up teaching at modern school. Geeta is sitting here. Her father was a key person in giving jobs to not only artists, musicians, actors, to teach in school, because that was a way they could make a living and then do their art practice on the side. And I think someone like Nand or Bishambar Khanna were artists who made work from their heart. It was a much simpler time in Delhi, much smaller city then. Art was not a big commercial, thing for them to pursue, unlike what it has become now as a profession and, with the new money glitz. And I think, my admiration for someone like Nand and his crew. Gopi is here, or has Gopi left? Oh, he's left. In fact, I just did a picture of Gopi and Nand just a few days before at Amitav Das's opening. And Nand's wife is also in that photograph. And I was so shocked when I heard, because he was such a, warm and lovely human being. Always smiling, always, filled with warmth. Never heard him ever say anything negative about anybody. And I think, that as Ashok said, that there are some artists who become like big stars, big names. And there are others who practice their art, who may not have become major names in the public arena, but just by their very presence and their practice, I think it's very important, it gives someone like me inspiration, that people can live their lives in a way that they want to by creating really out of the heart and not for uh, you know, public fame or uh, even monetary gain. And I think that's really what I can say from me, from my position as probably the youngest person in this room, and with great affection to the family. He will be warmly remembered. Thank you.
We have Mrs. Aruna Das Gupta, who worked with Nand in, I think, Span magazines.
Well, as I told Vajpayee ji and Gopi Katwani, I feel so inadequate and embarrassed to stand amongst this group of eminent artists and writers to speak about one of their own. But, and that's one reason I'm going to read, because I'd be too nervous to just talk like that. I speak as a colleague and friend of Nand Katyal, as someone who looked up to him with a lot of affection and respect. I worked alongside Mr. Katyal, or Katyal Saab as I always called him, in the American Embassy Span magazine from 1978 to 1993. He was much admired, even feared art director, and I was the senior editor. Younger than him in age, experience, Span's hierarchy, and of course height in every sense of that term. It was a bumpy start to our relationship. When I joined Span in the late 1970s, Katyal Saab had already been there for more than a decade and built a formidable reputation. I had till then mainly worked in youth magazines like Dateline Delhi and JS, which were kind of magazines without borders, where writers and artists happily ventured into each other's territories. I didn't know that that didn't normally happen in magazines. At Dateline, which some of you may remember as a tabloid produced by a group of young journalists under the mentorship of Sam Castellino, we all did everything: write, edit, layout, get ads, sell subscriptions. So it was with that gay, unfiltered abandon that early in my days at Span, I walked into Mr. Katyal's studio when he was doing the layouts for an article written by me. And now this was in the what we would call the BD era before digital. So he had all these papers around him, and he was doing the layout. So I innocently started suggesting some placements of the pictures. There was pin drop silence. He looked at me for 2 seconds, got up from his chair, and gesturing towards it, said in an exaggeratedly polite tone, "Aap aake baithiye na yahan pe." And a slap on the wrist could have been kinder. Embarrassed, I rushed out of the room, and to be admonished by other colleagues who said, "How could you have suggested a layout to him," etc., etc. Fortunately, we got over that bump soon and became extremely fond of each other, and I would repeatedly pull his leg about that encounter and so many other things, including the fact that his birthday was on Martyrs' Day. We used to rib him about that a lot. But that incident also demonstrated to me his deep passion for his work and his fierce defense as much of his art as of his right as an artist. You could not dictate any terms to Nand Katyal. He lived life also on his own terms. What struck me most in the years I saw him at work at Span was how his passion for art went step by step with a passion for reading, and definitely for reading every article he had to design pages for. Those days, Span devoted more than half of its content to the best in American writing from magazines like The Atlantic, The New Yorker, The New Republic, and they were all known for long, thought-provoking articles. Now, whether it was an article on philosophy, a radical movement, a literary personality, history, music, the Guernica, Katyal Saab would read them sometimes a few times to get the essence that would fuel his design of the title, the pages, the blurbs. You would never get just another generic page from Nand Katyal. And I guess this was the habit of reading that gave him the wisdom, the philosophical outlook, the deep knowledge, and the compassion that was so evident in every conversation with him. He was also a tough taskmaster, and yet such a fun colleague too. Yes, sometimes you had to walk as if on eggshells around him, but you could also, as I said, pull his leg, tease him, and get so much love and warmth from him in return. Surprisingly, our bond grew when I left Span, and we stayed in touch, sharing bits of our lives, our concerns, even confidences. We had what I would often call mutual counseling sessions. I took my elder daughter Neha to his studio in Kadi, and she was thrilled when she was very little then. He let her paint and gave her some clay. He was into sculptures then. Later, I would share the artworks of both my daughters with him on WhatsApp for his comments. He didn't quite like sending long messages, but he made an exception on those occasions and he gave his sharp critique, guidance, and suggestions and encouragement. When my younger daughter, Ria, decided to take up art after her graduation in history, he asked me to send him samples of her work and then suggested she join Triveni, but saying very sternly, if Mr. Baruta thinks she has the potential. Mr. Baruta did. Later, she joined a design and visual communication postgraduate course, and he would call, ask about her progress, her projects, and then about Neha, my husband Prabir. Abhi bhi smoke kar raha hai kya? And I would say yes, and he would say, kya yaar? And he would give me updates on Vijayji, Shalini, Nandita, Aditya. I spoke to him just a week before his sudden exit. I find it difficult to use the D word for him. It was again about Ria. We had many conversations about his dream project. That was such a passion for him. And when the book came out, he called me and said, "मैं आपको भेज रहा हूँ, Aruna ji. Now I feel I can go in peace." But my endearing memory of him will be that last walk I saw. Prabir and I met him earlier this year when we went to meet Avinash at his Priyadarshini Vihar house. Mr. Katyal, who lived just a few houses away, came over too, and what a warm winter day it became. It started drizzling as we were leaving, and we offered Mr. Katyal a lift, but he insisted on walking back. And there he was in his yellow jacket and grey beret, hands in his pocket, a smile on his face, jauntily walking in the rain. My husband said, who would think this was a man touching 90? Young people today don't walk with such a spring in their step. And on his own terms, as always, going the way he wanted to.
Avinash Pasrija ji, would you like to say a few words? Would you like to have a mic here? हाँ? आ जाएंगे, आ जाएंगे.
माइक चेक कर दीजिए. Hello. I'm not a speaker, and my eyesight is weak. My hearing is almost gone. I manage with a hearing aid. But it was a pleasure to work with Nand Katyal. I was appointed photo editor as soon as USIS decided to print a magazine called Span. And we worked together. After the two art directors retired, he came into Span and worked very hard. He would read the text, use the appropriate pictures, and it made me work harder to produce pictures that he would love to use well, give it space. And so togetherness of Nand Katyal and me worked very hard to produce this magazine, which went on for almost 60 years until we both retired on a few months of each other. It was very interesting to see this art director work so hard to read and use appropriate pictures, large for people to see what I had photographed. And so life was interesting, more interesting with Span and Nand Katyal than with the earlier art directors. So it continued well up to his retirement age and my retirement age. And we enjoyed working together. I enjoyed photographing the American projects. I enjoyed photographing whatever else was assigned to me. I've, in the process over the years, lost my eyesight, lost my hearing, but I continued to meet him when we shifted to Priyadarshini Vihar about a year ago, and we would meet in each other's house occasionally. I would meet him on the park, and whenever he saw me in the park, he would get up from his bench, shake hands, and says, "Hello," and out we go, and then he would walk again, and he would walk again. However, what was shocking, the most shocking thing was last Sunday. Last Sunday morning, I was sitting in the park bench, waiting for the sun to rise above the trees. That's what we go there for, sun. He sat with me for 20 minutes and talked in a ear which doesn't hear very much, but nevertheless, he kept on saying this, kept on saying it. In the end of 20 minutes, he looked very happy. He gave me a prasad from the temple that his daughter had taken him to. And so, life is interesting. I wonder at times how my life continues, and whereas his life should end so briskly, within that he didn't get up. And yet he looked so happy having been to the temple. He looked so happy to talk to me, and I was so happy that he got up to talk to me. So it is interesting. Life is very interesting actually, if you think of it. That why should a man who's in his prime, doing well, and of course, instead of Span, I also discovered his second life. His second life was in Gadi, where LKA had given him a studio, a large studio. I went there 3 or 4 times and photographed him at work in the studio, from the balcony inside the studio. And he also took the earlier managing editor, Carmen Cargill, to see what he does. So there was a man who was doing double the work. He was doing art direction for the magazine and painting for himself, which is 4 feet by 4 feet, those large ones. I've got one hanging in my house nowadays. I look at it and wonder how a man could live a double life and then suddenly go away, चुटकी से. ये क्या मतलब है? जिंदगी का कुछ मतलब समझ तो आए नहीं आया था. कैसे चलती है, कैसे खत्म हो जाती है एकदम से, ये भगवान को ही पता है. किसको पता है, ये बता दे मेरे को. मेरे को बहुत कम दिखाई दे रहा कौन बैठा है. मेरे को सुनाई बहुत कम थी देता. But my wife looks after me, looked after the house in Priyadarshini Vihar, where we shifted a year ago, and we meet in each other's house occasionally, and I met him at the park. But what was most shocking was that he spent 20 minutes sitting beside me, talking and talking, which I couldn't hear much because he was talking in the wrong ear. But nevertheless, there was a lot of love inside him. And that's what we shared in introducing Span, more than even the editors who came. Because I loved my profession, photography. He loved his profession, art direction and painting. The second life I discovered later on when I visited his studio in Gadi, and his large paintings. So finally he presented me one of those, which is now on display in my house, and everybody is welcome to B212 Priyadarshini Vihar to view their painting and meet us and meet my wife. What else can I say? That LKA, Nand Katyal, NKK actually, and Nand Kishore Katyal was a genius of a kind. And what is shocking is still that to hear within an hour of having this talk, he just goes, doesn't get up from bed. Within the next day I heard his wife, we met a few times together in each other's house. They would come and we would go. And it is amazing how life begins, how it ends. Would somebody explain all this to me from here in the audience? What to believe in yourself, believe in God, or believe in life. It is amazing. I don't know what else to say. In fact, if there are any questions, tell my wife because I can't hear myself. Thank you for hearing this. And you can come and look at one of his paintings in my house. But I still haven't gotten over the shock. Just last Sunday morning he came. And my son Amit would like to say something.
No, that I'm just here. No, it's all right. Come back.
Why don't you say something? Come on.
The only thing I'll add to what Dad was saying was that Priyadashini Vihar, which is the American Embassy Society colony, at the time when I moved in, my brother was already there, and Nand uncle and house was built by Ram Sharma, and it was one of the most beautiful houses in that neighborhood. And I think that kind of influenced Dad and my brother, who got involved in it, and we built our house, which is again a brick structure, like Nand's house, in a similar style. So we had in the colony, there were these two peculiar houses, which kind of stood out, and felt proud to be part of that circle of the appreciation.
ज्योतिष जोशी जिन्होंने नंद कटियाल के साथ कुछ काम भी किया है. ये सचमुच बहुत अफसोस की बात होती है कि जिस व्यक्ति की जिंदगी के 90 साल होने को थे, उसके कुछ ही समय उस व्यक्ति को यहाँ से जाना पड़ा. कात्याल जी के बारे में बहुत सारी बातें आप जानते हैं, आप लोगों ने साथ काम किया है, यहाँ कहा भी गया है. जिन दुखद परिस्थितियों में उनका परिवार लाहौर से आया और जिस तरह का संघर्ष किया, और महज 12 वर्ष की अवस्था में वो दिल्ली आए, फिर पढ़ाई लिखाई और धीरे धीरे रास्ता बनता गया. दिल्ली पॉलिटेक्निक से पढ़ाई के बाद दिल्ली शिल्पी चक्र के 4 वर्षों तक सचिव रहे, और वो दिल्ली शिल्पी चक्र का बहुत गौरवशाली समय था. और बाद में अमेरिकन सेंटर से जुड़े, जिसकी चर्चा यहाँ की गई. हमारा उनसे परिचय 1995-96 के आसपास हुआ, जब मैं हिंदी संपादक के रूप में ललित कला अकादमी में नियुक्त हुआ था. तो अक्सर आना जाना होता था, और उस बीच में गढ़ी में भी जाया करता था, तो भेंट होती थी गढ़ी स्टूडियो में. सबसे ज़्यादा नज़दीकी उनसे हमारी 2001 में हुई, जब वो 10वीं त्रिवार्षिकी भारत के निदेशक बनाए गए थे. तो लगभग साल भर रविंद्र भवन में ललित कला का जो कार्यालय है, वहाँ लगभग साल भर कात्याल जी का कार्यालय था. और उन दिनों प्रोटेम चेयरमैन थी सरयू दोषी, जो मार्ग पत्रिका की संपादिका रहीं लंबे समय तक, और उषा भाटिया सचिव थीं। तो अक्सर हम लोग चर्चा करते थे, और जो कैटलॉग त्रिवार्षिकी भारत का बना, तो सारी परिकल्पना उन्हीं की थी। हम थे और अमित मुखोपाध्याय जो अंग्रेजी के संपादक थे, हम लोगों की भूमिका टेक्स्ट को संपादित करना, प्रूफ देखना और बाकी चीज़ें थी, लेकिन वो जो डिज़ाइन का पार्ट था, और आखिरी समय में तो लगभग 1-1.5 महीने तक, ट्रिनाले इंडिया के शुरू होने के 1-1.5 महीने पहले तक 11 बजे 12 बजे रात तक हम लोग अजंता के दफ्तर में बैठे रहते थे। अजंता का दफ्तर तब ITO पे होता था और बहुत अच्छा प्रेस था वो, तो वहाँ बैठ के हम लोग काम करते थे। और जैसा अरुणा जी ने चर्चा की, न्यूयॉर्कर से लेके स्पेन और दुनिया के अनेक महत्वपूर्ण पत्रिकाओं के सैंपल्स वो रखे रहते थे कात्याल जी, और दिखाते थे, बात होती थी। खैर वो काम हुआ। उसी दौरान कई दफ़ा हम लोग बंगाली मार्केट आते थे चाय वाय पीने, या कहीं खाना खाने जाते थे, रात हो जाती थी तो मैं सहजता से उनको कुरेदता था कुछ निजी चीज़ों के लिए। ये बड़ा हैरत अंगेज मामला है कि अपने निजी प्रसंगों में वो कभी मुखर नहीं होते थे। जो भी दुख हो, तकलीफ हो, संघर्ष हो, वेदना हो, उसको जब्त करके चलते थे, उस पर वो ज़्यादा बात नहीं करते थे। हमेशा प्रसन्न रहना, या दूसरे के शुभ की कामना करना, दूसरे की चिंता करना, या कहीं कोई बात भी लग जाए उनको तो उसकी परवाह न करना, उसकी प्रतिक्रिया जाहिर न करना, ये अद्भुत था। वो विलक्षण थे इस मामले में। और खुद उनके कामों को आप देखें, और खुद कहते भी थे कि शास्त्रीय संगीत से मैं प्रेरित होता हूँ, और उसी तरह का रंगों का प्रभाव हमारे कामों में है। तो उनके जो लद्दाख के या ऋषिकेश सीरीज़ के जो काम हैं, और दूसरे अमूर्तन के जो काम हैं उनके, या ब्लैक कैट है जो बहुत मशहूर पेंटिंग है उनकी, तो उसमें रंगों का प्रभाव आप देख सकते हैं, और किस तरह से उन्होंने तूलिका का उपयोग किया है, और किस तरह से अपनी अनुभूति को व्यक्त किया है, तो बहुत विलक्षण है। यह तो साहित्य समाज की ही तरह कला का समाज भी, और लगभग हमारी संस्कृति का समाज ऐसा है कि जो अपना प्रचार न करे, जो किसी को देने लेने की स्थिति में न हो, तो उसको भूल जाने की कोशिशें होती रहती हैं। लेकिन हमारे समय में बहुत महत्वपूर्ण उपस्थिति रही कात्याल जी की। हर महत्वपूर्ण आयोजन में, कला प्रदर्शनी में वो शामिल रहते थे, सबका हाल चाल पूछना, और उनकी मिलनसारिता में जो ऊष्मा थी, जो ऊर्जा थी, वो अद्भुत थी। वो ललित कला में ही बाद के दिनों तक पुरस्कार समितियों में रहे, अनेक निर्णायक समितियों में रहे, दूसरे महत्वपूर्ण कामों में रहे, और जब से ललित कला अकादमी की स्थिति इस हद तक दयनीय हो गई कि उसने अच्छा काम करना बंद कर दिया, तब से मुझे नहीं लगता, मैंने खुद ललित कला अकादमी से VRS लिया था 2017 में। अभी 2026 तक मैं रहता वहाँ, लेकिन मुझे याद नहीं आता कि वो आपके जाने के बाद वो फिर ललित कला अकादमी नहीं आया 2011 के बाद। उस परिसर में उनको मैंने कभी देखा नहीं। मैं अपनी जानकारी में बता रहा हूँ। तो ये था उनका प्रतिरोध, और उनकी प्रतिक्रिया भी इस रूप में होती थी कि उसको वो छोड़ देते थे, उस पर बात नहीं करना, वहाँ जाना नहीं, वहाँ खड़ा नहीं होना। तो ऐसे विलक्षण व्यक्तित्व के धनी नंद जी को याद करना, उनके कामों से गुजरना, और उनकी इस यात्रा को, उनकी इस प्रेरणा को सतत महसूस करना और उनसे सीख लेना हम लोगों का एक तरह से धर्म है। मैं इस अवसर पर अपनी प्रणति देता हूँ और उनको प्रणाम करता हूँ। धन्यवाद। We have amongst us the architect friend of Nandji, Shivan Minju. Would you like to say a few words? Thank you. Please come.
Well, I wasn't at all prepared for this. It's a big surprise you're throwing on me. And I really don't know how to talk about this. But anyway, all that I can say is that I know Nand, a man of 18, 19 years age. And we all were together in Devon School of Art, Delhi Polytechnic. We were in School of Architecture, Delhi Polytechnic. And I remember those days when we had nothing fun and games, and none of us was serious about anything. And the young teenagers, the way they behaved, that's what we did. But subsequently, all of us had to go our own ways, and all I can say is that Nand, in his own way, we have all heard about him, and I can preciously add anything to it, but we always had great regard for him, and one of his best things was that you would always see him smiling. At least I don't remember, right from my childhood, him to sort of be without a smile, and never contradicting anything, excepting for when he had to make his points. They would be put in so nicely that you would feel that he was a civilized man. You know, it would never be a Sergio, but it would be definite, and you had to listen, and you had to quietly sort of agree. That was Nand Katyal. And when I think of him, I think of a host number of people. We all used to be together in Delhi Polytechnic, and all of them mischievous, everyone doing everything. The rest about his work, about his Guri studios, about his Span magazine, and other achievements are something that all of you know, and I can honestly add nothing else. The last we met him was in my own house. We were away for about 7, 8 weeks from India, and we all got together, and that evening, last thing, wife and us, we took them to our bedroom to show them the painting that they had given us, because it's such a beautiful painting that the other artworks in our house, whatever few we have, are in the sort of drawing room and this room, that room, etc. But that particular one, we are so attached to it that my wife, Veena particularly said, this is going to be in the bedroom only. And then she told me, they might say, "Hamari painting kahan gayi?" So she made it a point, come and see, this is the one we value the most. And you know, it was very shocking to hear from Gopi. We were in Scotland. So last Sunday when he rang up, I said, I can't believe it, you know. We were together only 2 months less than back, and he said it happened. And then we were planning to come, and I said, let me see if we can make on time or anything, but glad we're here. And it's a loss of a friend more than anything else. The other attributes of his are known, and I don't have to add anything. And God give him peace.
Vinod Bharadwaj.
जब मैं 1974 में दिल्ली आया था तो भूमिवन में हम लोग जाते थे, वही एक आर्ट का अड्डा था। तो वहाँ स्वामीनाथन थे, कृष्ण खन्ना, तो नंद कात्याल से उन्हीं दिनों, हालांकि वो स्पैन की वजह से बहुत व्यस्त हो गए थे, लेकिन मेरी पिछले कुछ महीनों में या कुछ सालों में उनसे बहुत मुलाकात हुई। पहले इतनी नहीं होती थी, इसकी वजह 2-3 थी। एक तो उम्र ज़्यादा थी लेकिन यंग बहुत थे, क्योंकि मुझे याद है एक बार अशोक वाजपेयी एक पत्रिका का अंक निकला था, रात को डिनर था डियर पार्क के पास में, और उसमें वो जब जाने लगे करीब 11 बजे तो मैंने देखा खुद ड्राइव कर रहे थे। बोले, मैंने कहा आप अभी भी ड्राइव करते हैं? बोले हाँ, मैं 82 का हूँ, लेकिन अब 82 के लोग तो हमारे यहाँ कम ही ड्राइव करते हैं। पर वो बड़े आराम से बोले मैं तो ड्राइव, अकेले ड्रिंक के बाद मतलब प्रियदर्शनी विहार तक जाना आसान नहीं था। दूसरा ये था कि वो बड़े साफ कह देते, जो वो डिज़ाइनर थे, उन्होंने स्पेन में इतना काम किया, तो कोई भी चीज़ देख के, किताब देखो, वो जैसे स्वामी की किताब जो अभी प्रयाग शुक्ल ने भूमिमल के लिए बहुत बड़ी किताब बनाई है, उसको देख के भी वो कह लो इसका डिज़ाइन ठीक नहीं है। मतलब उनका वो ये छिपाते नहीं थे कि डिज़ाइन नहीं ठीक है बोले। एक बार जब मेरा उनसे इस किताब के लिए बहुत संपर्क हुआ, क्योंकि मैं उनके शायद रामचंद्रन पे मैंने कंपाइल की थी बुक, आज से करीब कोविड के 1 साल बाद, तो मैं उनको देने के लिए गया घर पे। तो उन्होंने मुझे कहा कि यार मेरे पास ये जो मैरी कृष्ण और रूप कृष्ण का मटेरियल है, मैं इसको चाहता हूँ कि हर हालत में मेरे जीते जी ये निकल जाए। उन्होंने मुझे उसकी चीज़ें दी कि किसी तरह से तुम करो। फिर लेकिन उसमें कॉपीराइट प्रॉब्लम को लेके वो बड़े घबरा रहे थे। तब मैंने कहा कि चूँकि मैरी कृष्ण का भी कोई पता नहीं किसके पास है, वो क्या है, तो लेकिन मैंने कहा आप खुद ही काम करो, फिर इसमें क्या है, कुछ लोग खरीद लेंगे तो कॉस्ट निकल आएगी। तो उन्होंने पहले मुझे कई साल तक तो वो मटेरियल देते रहे। फिर बाद में अब जब फाइनली उन्होंने किताब को उन्होंने सहयोगी ढूंढ लिए, तो जब वो छपने वाली थी तो उन्होंने मुझे फ़ोन किया कि भाई रणवीर ने लिख दिया है, अशोक जी ने लिख दिया है, और उन्होंने परमजीत ने, तो एक तुम भी कुछ लिख दो। लेकिन ये किताब जब मैंने डिज़ाइन देखा इसका, तो मुझे लगा कि ऐसी किताबें और कलाकारों पे भी बन सकती हैं, जो कि बहुत मतलब मोटी और ऐसी किताब नहीं है जिसमें आपको इस पर, बल्कि अशोक जी चाह भी रहे हैं कि इस पर गोष्ठी भी हो। उनकी एक बहुत इच्छा थी, ये सही बात है। उन्होंने मुझे कई बार फ़ोन किया, बोले आप वो किताब तो आ गई है, पर मैं चाहता हूँ कि उस पर ये प्रोग्राम जल्दी से जल्दी हो जाए। काफ़ी मतलब उनके मन में था, लेकिन चांस की बात ये थी कि शायद समय इनको दिया गया, अभी जैसा बता भी रहे थे अशोक जी, जनवरी में। अब वो तो मुझे कह रहे थे मार्च में भी मुझे अपना 90 साल मनाने हैं। तो हम लोग तो यही सोच रहे थे, जैसे मैं हुसैन से जब मिला लंदन में 95 के थे, हम लोग सोच रहे थे कि वो 100 साल जिएंगे, लेकिन वो 10 महीने बाद नहीं रहे। तो इस तरह से कभी कभी ऐसा होता है। और वो तो अभी कुछ दिन पहले तो मैंने एक शो किया था सूजा की, उसमें तो उसमें उन्होंने पेंटिंग दी थी, और बहुत अच्छी पेंटिंग दी थी। और फिर उन्होंने कई बार मुझे फ़ोन करके कहा कि इसको मैं रेस्टोर कराना चाहता हूँ, मेरी कुछ पेंटिंग नीचे रखी हुई ख़राब हो गई है। मुझे अभी एक स्कल्प्टर हमारे दोस्त नीरज भी कह रहे थे, पर वो शायद निधन से 2 दिन पहले उन्होंने यही कहा था कि मेरी ये पेंटिंग रिस्टोर करा दो। तो मतलब वो काफ़ी इच्छा थी उनकी कि किताब पे भी कार्यक्रम हो जाए, लेकिन खैर वो तो मुश्किल था क्योंकि इनके कार्यक्रम भी बहुत थे। और फिर उन्होंने मुझे एक दिन कहा कि मैं यार फेसबुक में तो मैं दूर रहता हूँ, मैंने कहा अगर आप इस किताब को चाहते हैं लोगों तक की बात पहुँचे तो फेसबुक को अपना लीजिए। तो वो फिर दोबारा फेसबुक में आए, और फेसबुक में उन्होंने मुझे एक दिन कहा कि देखो वो कार्यक्रम तो होगा, पर मैं चाह रहा हूँ कि लोगों तक इसकी चीज़ें जाएँ। तो उन्होंने एक कॉलम शुरू किया, अभी 3 उनके फेसबुक पेज में आप देख सकते हैं कि उन्होंने इसके कुछ मटेरियल देना शुरू किया ताकि लोगों तक ये पहुंच सके। तो मतलब उनमें ये दूसरी बात जो कि मैं अब कहना पड़ेगा मुझे कि इतनी बड़ी गैलरी ने उनका काम खरीद लिया एक समय सारा, पर किताब नहीं निकाली। और अफसोस की बात है कि हमारे यहाँ मरने के बाद ही लोगों को महत्व ज़्यादा मिलता है, कला में तो खास तौर पे। कलाकार का अगर वो मुझे न्यूयॉर्क में हमारे एक दोस्त आर्टिस्ट हैं, वो भी यही कह रहे थे कि यार मेरा सारा काम खरीद लिया गया है, लेकिन किताब शायद मेरे मरने के बाद ही बनेगी। तो इसलिए इस तरह का जो हमारे यहाँ का माहौल है उसमें इस तरह से कलाकार को अपने जीवन में, पर मुझे खुशी है कि उन्हें ये किताब देख सके। वो जब उन्होंने उनकी पत्नी बैठी हैं, ये जानती हैं कि जब उनकी किताब छपी तो मैं उनके घर गया तो इतने खुश थे वो, और वो चाह रहे थे कि ये किताब। एक तो कारण ये है कि मुझे कृष्ण खन्ना ने एक इंटरव्यू में 2016 में कहा रूप कृष्ण के बारे में, हम लोग कोई नहीं जानते थे उनके बारे में, क्योंकि लाहौर के 40s के दिनों को, क्योंकि इनके पिताजी उनके अच्छे दोस्त थे, तो इनके पास अभी भी इनके पास कई चीज़ें हैं। वो बता रहे थे कि मेरे पास कुछ शायद इसमें कई लोगों के स्केच वगैरह और चीज़ें हैं। तो मुझे लगता है कि उनकी मेमोरी को हम लोग आगे बढ़ाएंगे, क्योंकि जिंदा दिल तो बहुत थे। अभी मरने से 2-3 दिन पहले उन्हें फ़ोन पे ऐसे बात, वो अरे यार करके बात करते थे, और उनका अंदाज़ ये नहीं था कि हम सीनियर हैं या जूनियर हैं। और अच्छे ये 4-5 दिन बड़े ख़राब हैं। सिद्धार्थ टैगोर के अचानक डेथ की खबर सुनी तो मतलब कुछ कभी कभी ऐसा होता है कि आप आसपास के माहौल में, तो साल का आखिर है, तो ऐसा लग रहा है कि जैसे, लेकिन मेरा ख्याल है कि उन पर वो किताब भी आ जाएगी जो आनी चाहिए उनके आर्ट पर, क्योंकि उनका महत्व तो अलका जी भी बहुत मानते थे। उनका शो मैंने जो देखे थे शुरू में, वो तो आर्ट हेरिटेज भी देखे थे, और अभी भी जो उन्होंने हमें 2 पेंटिंग दी थी शो के लिए, वो बहुत अच्छी पेंटिंग है। मेरा ख्याल है उन्हें एज ए पेंटर, डिज़ाइनर के रूप में तो क्या ठीक है, उनको याद किया ही जाएगा, पर उनके एज ए पेंटर और एज ए कलरिस्ट उनको याद किया जाएगा। मैं उनके परिवार को श्रद्धांजलि देता हूँ।
Is there somebody else who would like to say something?
Just add,
Yeah?
add 1 or 2 things I forgot.
Okay.
Get too emotional. No, one of the things I think of Delhi Polytechnic and also Delhi Shilpi Chakra. These are both institutions which have been forgotten. And in the history of Delhi's art, all these people who came out of that is so important, because Delhi, the modern Delhi was formed after independence. And Bhavesh Sanyal had also come from Punjab. There was a big Punjab aspect of the artists who'd come after partition. And I think it's a history which is, no less important than Baroda or Shantiniketan. It might be of a smaller scale, but I think that this history needs to be recorded. And I had told some senior museum people and curators a number of years ago to please at least go and interview the people who are still with us of that history. Sadly, Kiran Gujral passed away, also a very under-recognized artist. She kind of drowned under the name of Satish Gujral, but she was a very, very talented artist herself and needs to be recognized. Hopefully this can be done at some point, but I think it's very important. Thanks.
दिल्ली शिल्पी चक्र का जिक्र आया तो मुझे याद आया 1958 में मेरी उम्र 17 बरस की थी, बार दिल्ली आया था और मेरे 2 ही परिचित यहाँ लोग थे, श्रीकांत वर्मा और नरेश मेहता। तो मैं उनसे मिलने गया और वहाँ से उन दिनों कॉफ़ी हाउस जनपथ पर होता था, तो हम लोग वहाँ गए। वहाँ मैंने पहली बार राम मनोहर लोहिया को देखा। मैं तो उनको जानता नहीं था, श्रीकांत ने कहा कि वो राम मनोहर लोहिया बैठे, मैं 1 मिनट मिल के आता हूँ। उसके बाद हम दिल्ली शिल्पी चक्र गए, जो शंकर मार्केट में होती थी, और वहाँ राम कुमार की प्रदर्शनी थी। मैंने इसके पहले किसी भी चित्रकार की कोई प्रदर्शनी नहीं देखी थी। एकल प्रदर्शनी देखने का सवाल ही नहीं था, सागर में कहाँ से होती। और वहीं मेरी मुलाकात बहुत सारे हिंदी लेखकों से हुई कि राम कुमार का ये पक्ष बाद में धीरे धीरे भुला दिया गया कि वो हिंदी के अच्छे कथाकार भी थे। निर्मल इतने बड़े कथाकार हो गए कि फिर शायद राम कुमार ने अपने को अलग ही कर लिया कथा साहित्य से, लेकिन उनके उपन्यास भी उस समय निकले थे और कहानियाँ भी निकली। तो पहली बार मेरी राम कुमार से मुलाकात हुई, और बहुत सारे मोहन राकेश और मनोहर श्याम जोशी, निर्मल वर्मा इत्यादि इत्यादि। तो दिल्ली शिल्पी चक्र का इतिहास भी संभवतः लिखा जाना चाहिए। बहरहाल अब हम 1-2 मिनट का मौन रख के नंद जी को श्रद्धांजलि देंगे।
इस किताब की कुछ प्रतियां बाहर उपलब्ध हैं, अगर कोई खरीदना चाहे तो ज़रूर।